From Painesville, outside the nation's capital, Monrovia, good morning and welcome to Blaze News Point. 45 minutes of the most accurate balance and tinted news about Liberia, Africa, and the rest of our global world. Today is Thursday, April 23, 2026. My name is Menso Mendy presenting this edition of the program. Stories topping the headlines. Office for the establishment of the War and Economic Crimes Court for Liberia raises concern over the lack of adequate support attributes delayed in the court's establishment to administrative challenges involving top government officials. Former executive governor of the Central Bank of Liberia, Milton Weeks, calls for a more inclusive and results-driven approach to Liberia's financial inclusion agenda. House of Representatives passes into law a bill seeking the establishment of the Princeville school system. In a way from Liberia, Populio criticizes the treatment of prisoners in Equatorial Guinea ahead of a visit to a jail known for its dire condition. The news bulletin, the voice of those making the news, are all packaged on today's presentation. But first is Kodan Rufus and the news bulletin. Good morning, Kodan.
Good morning, Meso. Good morning, everyone. The Executive Director of the Office for the Establishment of the World Economic Crimes Court, Jala Babu, has raised concerns over what he described as a lack of adequate support for the establishment of the court in Liberia. Speaking Wednesday on the local radio, the Monrovia Councillor Babu disclosed that President Joseph Boakai had earlier committed $2 million annually to support the office, something he said has not been fully fulfilled. He attributed delay in the establishment of the court to administrative challenges involving Justice Minister Oxford Twe and the President Liko Levaso Buju Ben Keita. Councillor Babu also alleged that some individuals may be deliberately obstructing the process, claiming that certain people are protecting themselves while others are shielding individuals from facing justice under the proposed court. He is now calling on Liberians to support and advocate for the establishment of the World Economic Crimes Code, warning that without stronger backing, the process could stall and delay justice for victims. The House of Representatives has passed into law a bill seeking the establishment of the Painesville Community School. That's the school system. The legislation introduced by Montserrat County District Number 5 Representative Priscilla Cooper aims to create a structured and community-driven educational system for Painesville. The decision was taken Wednesday during the plenary's 9-day sitting of its ongoing special session, following the submission of a detailed report from the Committee on Education and Public Administration. According to the committee, the original bill, though well-intentional, contain structural gaps that could have created governance challenges similar to those faced by the Monrovia Consolidated School System. However, lawmakers say those issues have now been fully addressed in the revised version. The redrafted Painesville School System Act of 2026 establishes a clear and balanced governance structure, outlining divine roles for the Ministry of Education, the Painesville City Corporation, and local community stakeholders. Following deliberations, members of the House unanimously endorsed the committee's recommendation, paving the way for the bill's passage. The legislation has now been forwarded to the Liberian Senate for concurrence. Former Executive Governor of the Central Bank of Liberia, Milton Weeks, has called for a more inclusive and result-driven approach to Liberia's financial inclusion agenda. Speaking at the National Financial Inclusion Education Strategy 2026 to 2030 workshop, Weeks emphasized that the upcoming strategy must go beyond being a technical document and instead reflect a shared national commitment. He outlined a multi-sectoral approach to achieving meaningful financial inclusion, stressing that various stakeholders must play active and coordinated roles. According to him, commercial banks must lead in driving innovation and expanding inclusive financial products, while mobile network operators and mobile money providers should work to improve affordability and access to financial services. Wicks also highlighted a critical role of government in digitalizing payment and public services, noting that such efforts can significantly enhance transparency and accessibility, urging regulators to strengthen consumer protection frameworks to build public trust in the financial system. At the same time, Wicks noted that account ownership in Liberia has increased from about 36% to over 50% of the adult population in recent years. He pointed to key developments such as the expansion of agent banking networks, the introduction of the P99 instant payment system in December last year, the improvement in the legal and regulatory framework governing digital financial services. President Pro Tem of the Liberian Senate, Yomli Kanga Lauren, has underscored ongoing efforts to increase women's participation in politics, pointing to both her legislative track record and grassroots engagement as key drivers of change. Speaking Wednesday, April 22, in an interview, Senator Kanga Lawrence said significant progress has been made over the years, particularly during her tenure as chair of the Women Legislative Caucus. She recalled leading efforts to push for a 30% quota for women's representation in the National Election Law, an initiative that was passed by the legislature but later vetoed by former President George Weah over unrelated provisions. Despite the setback, Kanga Lauren emphasized that advocacy for women's inclusion has remained a priority, especially within the Liberty Party. According to her, the key to increasing women's representation lies to early identification and mentorship, adding that sharing her own political journey has been instrumental in inspiring young women to pursue leadership roles. Senator Kanga Lawrence highlighted that women constitute nearly half of the country's voting population and remain instrumental in bringing leaders to power. However, she pointed out that their expectations have often go unmet despite their immense contributions to society. She also painted a vivid picture of the daily hardships faced by Liberian women, including those traveling long distance under harsh conditions, sometimes at night or in the early morning hours. The Minister of Education, Dr. Jaso Jala, has disclosed the importance of early childhood education, terming it as a foundation for national development. Delivering the keynote address Wednesday at an event commemorating the National Week of a Young Child in Monrovia, Madam Jala described early childhood as the most critical stage of human development. She noted it is during these formative years the children acquire essential cognitive, emotional, and social skills. Mr. Jala noted that the government is committed to expanding access to quality early childhood education across the country, revealing that the ministry is working to ensure that all Liberian children have access to safe and supportive learning environment. She further disclosed that the government has created an electronic learning platform, explaining that the initiative is a 20-year blueprint in the blueprint the ministry has marked for the country's transformation. The minister also encouraged children to remain hopeful and committed to their education, describing them as the heartbeat of Liberia, of Liberians whose dreams must be nurtured. The Health Officer of Bombing County, Annette Davis, has outlined several development initiatives undertaken by the county health team since she assumed office, while acknowledging the contribution of Liberia's First Lady Katumo Boakai and the Bearman Timani Company. Speaking in an interview on Wednesday in Tottenham, Bombing County, Madam Davis explained that upon taking office, the health facilities in the county face poor road conditions that pose risks to patients, particularly pregnant women. According to her, foreign sustained advocacy, First Lady Katumo Bwaka recognized the urgency of the situation and engaged the mining company to carry out the necessary works. Madam Davis further revealed that the Bear Mountain Mining Company also renovated health facilities, an effort she said have improved working conditions for staff and ensuring timely healthcare delivery for patients in the county. Grand Bassa County Superintendent Kyle Johnson is calling on citizens of the county, especially employees of the county administration, to refrain from providing inaccurate and misleading funds to the public during its operations. The superintendent also provided transformational support to strengthen local service delivery with the distribution of new vehicles and equipment to key communities across Grand Bassa County. Speaking during the presentation on Wednesday, April 22, Superintendent Kyle Johnson urged local authorities to present informed discussion to the public and refrain from having discussion on matters they are not knowledgeable about. Items presented included a mini dump truck, 3 tricycles, and 2 pickup trucks for usage by Harlandville Township, Wazon City, Edina City, and St. John City. The initiative aims to improve sanitation, ease transportation challenges, and support daily administrative work. The Civil Service Agency has announced sweeping reforms requiring all civil servants to sign a mandatory national non-disclosure agreement which creates penalties for non-compliance. CSA Director General Josiah Joker made the announcement recently during his press conference during the Ministry of Information regular press briefing. Dr. Joker said the NDA is intended to protect sensitive government information, strengthen professionalism, and improve accountability across the public sector. Under the directive, all civil servants are required to sign and return their agreement to their respective human resource directors beginning May 1, 2026, with a deadline of June 1, 2026. Dr. Jokai warned that enforcement measures will create with salary suspension starting June 2, 2026 for those who fail to comply, followed by possible dismissal after an additional grace period. The CSA boss noted that the policy is being implemented in collaboration with the Independent Information Commission and the Whistleblower Agency to ensure transparency and adherence to existing laws. He described the move as part of a broader effort to restore discipline and rebuild public trust in government institutions. In addition to the NDA rollout, the Jokai outlined plans to decentralize CSA operations, including the construction of a regional office in Banka to serve Central and Northern Liberia, and renovation to its Tottenham office to improve services in the Western region. He also disclosed that the agency has acquired new vehicles and a 250 kVA generator to strengthen nationwide supervision and ensure uninterrupted operations. The Liberia Agricultural Commodity Regulatory Authority has convened major international shipping operators in a bid to strengthen export data integrity, improve traceability systems, and intensify the fight against smoking. The high-level engagement held on April 21 at the authority's headquarters on Busher Asden brought together representatives from leading global shipping companies including Marex, MSC, and CMA, as well as CGM. The meeting was chaired by LACRA's Acting Director General Denis Saye and focused on enhancing collaboration in agricultural export monitoring and data management. According to LACRA, the initiative is aimed at closing long-standing gaps to export reporting by integrating operational shipping data into its regulatory framework. Officials say the move will improve transparency, strengthen compliance with international standards, and boost national revenue and accountability. Sai emphasized the importance of accurate and timely export data, noting it is critical for regulatory compliance, investors' confidence, and effective economic planning. Discussions at the meeting highlighted the role of shipping companies as primary custodians of export movement data, positioning them as key partners in strengthening Liberia's commodity traceability systems. And briefly away from Liberia, Pope Leo has criticized the treatment of prisoners in Equatorial Guinea ahead of a visit to a jail known for its bad conditions. He addressed the Central African nation on Wednesday at a mass that drew some 100,000 people, including Teodoro Obiangwema, the country's leader and the world long-serving president, or reach Equatorial Guinea, a country with a poor human rights record and vast income inequality, is the Pope's final stop on a full nation tour for Africa. In the evening on Wednesday, his last full day of the tour, Pope Leo is scheduled to visit an infamous prison in the economic capital, Bata. Where Menso is over to you for the continuation of the news program.
Many thanks to Koran Rufus for the news bulletin. This is indeed a record featured on Blaze News Point. For new, fast, factual, and always up to date, you are just in tune to Blaze News Point. 45 minutes of the most accurate balance and compare the news about Liberia, Africa, and the rest of our global village. Here are the big stories topping the headlines. Office for the Establishment of the War and Economic Crimes Code for Liberia raises concern over the lack of adequate support attributes delayed in the code's establishment to administrative challenges involving top government officials. Former executive governor of the Central Bank of Liberia, Milton Weeks, calls for a more inclusive and results-driven approach to Liberia's financial inclusion agenda. House of Representatives passes into law a bill seeking the establishment of the Pinsville school system. And away from Liberia, Pope Leo criticizes the treatment of prisoners in Equatorial Guinea ahead of a visit to a jail known for its dire condition. The voices of those making the news are still ahead, but this break, Toby, we're back. Welcome back to Blaze News Pan. We don't take our first development. The executive director of the Office for the Establishment of the War and Economic Crimes Code for Liberia, Jalad Babu, has raised concern over what he describes as the lack of adequate support for the establishment of the code in the country. Speaking Wednesday on the local radio station, Councillor Babu disclosed that President Joseph Boycott had earlier committed $2 million United States dollars annually to support the office, something he said has not been fully fulfilled.
President said in that document what the president issued on April 30 last year, he said, I see the office working, but every year we get the office $2 million. But the way we do it, every 3 quarters we get them 500,000 and we pay in advance. For example, when January 2 comes, the Ministry of Finance will make sure it get the office 500,000 for January, February, and March. Then by the time March ending, it get the office money for April, May, and June. But I want to tell you, this is rough, and that's the reason why I say I hear the small people new, but I here to talk the fact, and the fact is we are not supported adequately. I know people feel bad about it.
He attributed delayed in the establishment of the court to administrative challenges involving Joseph Menisol Oswatue and the President legal advisor Bujuben Keita. Councillor Babu also alleged that some individuals may be deliberately orchestrating the process, claiming that certain people are protecting themselves while others are shielding individuals from facing justice under the proposed code.
I take the law, I carry to the director of the cabinet. Director of the cabinet is Honorable Kwabo. The man go through. The man say, okay, I see you now. Let me see what we can do about it. So when we move from there, we say, well, it can't be so because the president appointed the minister of justice to be the coordinator. So we got to go see the minister back and back. Finally, the minister say, I'm ready for me to take the law from here. On December 30, we carry the law to the minister. So December 30 to January 30 to February 30 to March 30, we almost to April 30, more full. You know what? The minister called me by one day. I want some more copy of the law. I said, minister, I even send you the law, the soft copy, but let me print some more and bring it. I print it, I care. Minister, we got to talk about the law, we got to care because we got something to call the roadmap. The thing in my hand, I will leave it with you, call the roadmap. And the thing we so do about time, the time passing by all. You understand? So I've been behind the minister. Look, I may be the minister of you, but I'm a big brother. But I got to talk it because I'm not looking for brother business. I'm not looking for friend business. I want the country to be all right and the government to succeed. So the minister have been avoiding me, so to speak. You understand what I say? The minister of justice. That's my big brother. Because when I say let me, we can't meet. Mr. Minister, we can't push it, we can't push it. Mr. Minister, what we are on the law, we can't do it. So the organization then said, the stakeholder then said, they not engage the minister on it. I followed them and said, what the minister say? He said, Minister, no, you're not talking to us. The Liberal Council of Church and other people went there. They have discussion with the minister. Nothing. So I said, okay. Saying like this, so let me see what I can do. I go back to the mansion. I meet the director of the cabinet. The director of the cabinet said, look, let me go to the legal advisor. Since you carry the law and the president took it, get to the legal advisor. Legal advisor called me. He said, we're ready to carry the thing here, so let's talk it. I said, okay. He said, the president said, I said, I know because the president sent me a letter. He said, you the focal point on this side. I sit down with the legal advisor. When we push it back either, we talk. He said, okay, you know, I'm too busy, so my deputy. I said, the president appointed you, now appoint your deputy. Why you want your deputy to say, oh, anything here? They didn't serious matter than the nation here. Why you take it to your deputy? But anyway, that you're offering when you say so, okay, we're going to Bangor to do some work. Your deputy will well, oh, she said, no way. We're still there. So I met a deputy too, I think 2 weeks ago, yeah. I said, but where are we now with the thing? He said, Cancer. That you're trying to be moving on. And I said, you want to give it to the president? And you go give it to the president. I said, no, it doesn't work like that.
That's the voice of the executive director of the Office for the Establishment of the War and Economic Crimes Court, Jarat Babu, raising concern over what he describes as a lack of adequate support for the establishment of the court in Liberia. At the same time, attributing delayed in the establishment of the court to administrative challenges involving Justice Minister Oswatue and the President legal advisor Bujuben Keita. And instead reflect a shared national commitment and outline a multi-sectorial approach to achieving meaningful financial inclusion, stressing that various stakeholders must play active and coordinated roles.
The next strategy, the National Financial Inclusion in Education Strategy 2026-2030, must not be a document owned by only one institution or a framework measured only by numbers. It must be a national strategy. It must be co-owned across institutions. It must be focused on real outcomes for our citizens. And this means banks must drive innovation and inclusion in products. Mobile money operators must expand affordability and access. The government must lead in digitizing payments and services. Regulators must strengthen trust and consumer protection. Our development partners must align support to national priorities, and probably most important, each of us must move from participation ownership, because financial inclusion is not achieved when accounts are open. It is achieved when a market woman can save safely. It is achieved when a small business can access credit. It's achieved when a farmer can withstand shocks, and every citizen can trust the system that they are part of. The assessment the preliminary assessment that we've done, and which will lead to the final assessment, helps give us clarity. What we do with that clarity that is now in our hands.
At the same time, Weeks noted that the account ownership in Liberia has increased from about 36% to over 50% of the adult population in recent years. He pointed to key documents such as the expansion of agent banking networks, the introduction of the Pay Nana Instant Payment System in December last year, and improvements in the legal and regulatory framework governing digital financial services.
Over the past few years, Liberia has expanded financial services significantly. Account ownership has grown from about 36% to over 50% of the adult population. That is not a small achievement. It reflects policy commitment, regulatory progress, and industry innovation. We have also seen tangible advancements in key infrastructure, such as the expansion of the agent banking networks, the launch of the Pay Nana instant payment system in December last year, the strengthening of the legal and regulatory framework for digital financial services. These are foundational gains. They matter. They position Liberia better today than where it was 5 years ago. However, the assessment also highlights an important reality. Access alone is not the same as inclusion. While more people now have accounts, far fewer are actively using them to save or to borrow or to transact or to build financial resilience. In simple terms, we have built the rails, but we have not yet fully unlocked consistent, meaningful usage. 3 key challenges explain this gap. First is measurement. The strategy focused heavily on what is easy to count: accounts, agents, infrastructure, but less on what truly matters, which is usage, trust, and financial health. Second is scope. Critical areas such as agriculture, gender inclusion, climate resilience, and rural access challenges were not fully embedded in the previous strategy design.
That's the voice of the former executive governor of the Central Bank of Liberia, Milton Weeks, noting that account ownership in Liberia has increased from about 36% to over 50% of the adult population in recent years, and at the same time calling for a more inclusive and results-driven approach to Liberia's next financial inclusion agenda. Today's development now, the House of Representatives has passed into law a bill seeking the establishment of the Pinsville school system. The legislation introduced by Montreal County District 5 Representative Priscilla Cooper aims to create a structural and community-driven education system for Pinsville. Here is the Deputy Chief Clerk at the House of Representatives, Tuad Woods Ross, reading the decision during the plenaries now the sitting of his ongoing special section.
It contains 3 fundamental businesses: governance and donation rates. The original bill narrowed the NCSS structure as a later identified as a failure. The Senate Corporation has not special increasing the rates and means with to suffer the scheme state. With municipal further, the mayor's office of municipal finances was contingent on governance authority. The original bill has no guarantee rule to contributions from similar for the city corporation. Insufficient attention to voluntary teachers. While Madam Myers raised the issue, the original bill had a clear-funded project facility to convert volunteer to paid staff. Key features of the final draft: code co-chair leadership session the mayor and Ministry of Education representatives co-chair addressing the mayor
reports from the Committee on Education and how to establish the PBA school system and grant a chapter. Bill, sponsor, and cover, and the right honorable Priscilla Cooper. Thank you, with pleasure.
Mr. Speaker, presiding fellow colleagues, in my capacity as the chair of the Penfield Legislative Council, I move, if I can be seconded, Mr. Speaker, that the report from the Joint Committee relative to the passage of the bill to grant the school system, granting a charter, I move that this report be endorsed, be accepted, and all the recommendations in it endorsed and officially forwarded to Senate for concurrence by law. If I can obtain a second.
Thank you so much. Now the movement will be endorsed and sent to the Senate for concurrence. Then seconded. I leave my report. Madam Speaker, I'm going to see you.
That's the voice of the Deputy Chief Clerk at the House of Representatives, toward whose words reading the decision during the plenaries now the sitting of its ongoing special session when the House of Representatives passed into law a bill seeking the establishment of the Pinsville school system. The Minister of Education, Jaso Jaran, has disclosed the importance of early childhood education, terming it as a foundation for national development. Delivering the keynote address Wednesday at an event commemorating the National Week of a Young Child in Monrovia, Madam Jara described early childhood as the most critical stage of human development. Minister Jara stated that the government is committed to expanding access to quality early childhood education across the country, revealing that the ministry is working to ensure that all Liberian children have access to safe and supportive learning environments.
This year marks 56 years of recognizing the importance of our youngest children. That continuity matters. It reminds us that this is not new work. The celebrating of the young child is not new, but the work that must be taken more seriously with each passing year. And I'll pause here to tell you why it's just not about this week's celebration. That this government, under the leadership of our president, sees the importance of early childhood education. And not only did he launch the Excellence in Learning project that is going to impact all primary schools in this great Republic of Liberia. And when we say it's going to impact all primary schools in the Republic of Liberia, public schools, and of course, some opportunities to extend to our private providers as well. But foundational learning is important because this is where we encourage in the kids the love of learning. No more should we just look at ABC class and say, oh, that ABC, just send somebody there. When we do that, we are damaging the growth of that child. We need to be the ones sitting with our children, teaching them and asking them what they are interested in at a young age. That's how we encourage learning. And with that, we have started the e-learning platform. It's Liberia's first learning platform. We're working to get the offline version because we know it's not everyone that have access to internet. And this platform is specifically focused on grade 1 through grade 3. And it's inclusively designed so that our children with challenges, whether auditory or visual, they'll still be able to log in and be able to be a part.
She further disclosed that the government created an electronic learning platform And noting that the initiative is a 20-year blueprint the ministry has marked for the country transformation. The minister also encouraged children to remain hopeful and committed to their education, describing them as a habit of Liberia whose dreams must be nurtured.
So this work is not just this week's celebration. It's a 20-year blueprint that we have mapped for the transformation of Liberia. Together, years from now, we would all say we were there when it started. In many of our communities, a child's learning journey does not begin in the classroom. It begins at home, often without books, without structured support, and sometimes without time and attention to early learning. By the time the child enters school, maybe by first grade or so, the gap has already started, because what they should have learned in pre-K, K1, before 2, 3, and then first grade, that time has already elapsed. So from that time, that child is playing catch up. That is the reality we must confront in Liberia. And I always share this story. When I first took over as Minister of Education, I toured the entire country. I'm not going to say the county I saw this young lady, a young child. I think she was about maybe between 5 and 7. There was some writing on the blackboard. I walked through the class, and this young child wrote so beautifully. Beautiful handwriting. Copied all the notes on the board. She had it on her lap. So as I'm walking through the classes among the students, my eye caught her notebook. I looked at her. I said, "You wrote this?" She nodded her head. I said, "Okay, write it again. Let me see." She wrote it and asked her. I said, "Now read it." She looked at me bright-eyed. She couldn't read. And in that moment, I said the issue of foundational learning is now visible. The issue of early learning, here is an example. And as a government, if we don't fix this, we would have failed our country and our people. And this is why the Excel project focus is excellence in learning at the primary level. So behind that reality is a child sitting in a classroom, sometimes outside one, trying to make sense of a system that did not fully prepare them at the beginning. So they struggle.
That's the voice of the Minister of Education, Jaso Jalan, revealing that the government created an electronic learning platform, a 20-year blueprint the ministry has marked for the country transformation. At the same time, disclosing the importance of early childhood education, terming it as the foundation for national development. The President pro tempore of the Liberian Senate, Yomdi Kanga Lawrence, has underscored ongoing efforts to increase women's participation in politics, pointing to both her legislative track record and grassroots engagement as key drivers of change. Speaking Wednesday, April 22, in an interview, Senator Kanga Lawrence said significant progress has been made over the years, particularly during her tenure as chair of the Women's Legislative Caucus. She recalled leading efforts to push for a 30% quota for women's representation in the National Elections Law, an initiative that was passed by the legislature but later vetoed by former President George Weah over unrelated provisions.
For female participation in politics, we've done a lot, even besides what we're doing in Liberty Party. I think I've worked very well when I was the chair of the Women Legislative Caucus in the legislature, and we pushed the 30% in the National Elections Law. That passed until the former president Weah vetoed because of some other lines that was not related to the 30%. But in the Liberty Party, just the fact that we have a lot of females at the top. We said there's a women's party. So right now we are spotting a lot of young women because I said if you want to bring women in leadership, you don't wait for last minute time and you just put them on a ticket. First, you have to spot them. You have to nurture them. You have to make them confident. Somebody like me who has come this far in politics, I do that by telling my story. We have all these different women programs like Liberty Party is the only party that every year has had the biggest International Women's Day program. So that's our way of mentoring our women and preparing them for leadership. And not just a high level, just this weekend I was in Liberia, all the way in district number 4 at the border of Nimba and Grand Bassa County I went to talk to 500 women, but there were 746 women, and we're talking about leadership at their different community levels. So we are doing a lot to attract women, because it's very difficult to have women come up to express their interest in getting into politics or sitting around the table. Because some of the things that some women go through, especially people like me, but to stand up for the women, I have to be more tolerant, and I have to show the leadership ability that will inspire them and motivate them, so that I can show you that Liberty Party will do everything to even cross 30%.
Senator Kanga Lawrence highlighted that women constitute nearly half of the country's voting population and remain instrumental in bringing leaders to power. She also painted a vivid picture of the daily hardship faced by Liberian women, including those traveling long distances on harsh conditions, sometimes at night or in the early morning, seated on goods and trucks, or stranded on highways due to breakdowns.
So, women make up close to 50% of our voting population.
Right.
They support a lot of leaders in coming to power, and they have very high expectations. Besides that, we see women do the most, especially for the livelihood of the families. You see women in the market fighting for tuition. If you go to the hospitals, you see women there with their babies, with their children. Some of them can not even afford hospital bills. You're traveling sometimes late at nights and early mornings. I see women on trucks sitting down on fire coal bags. You see trucks breaking down and women on the road, on that bus and all that, so just sleeping. And so we, especially as female leaders, they depend on us and they look forward to us working to empower them, not just to empower them, but to make sure that these sectors that are needed to help and the livelihoods of our different families are paid attention to, especially health, education, rural network, and those we pay a lot of attention to in the Senate. But we have started for many, many years since I became a senator. We started doing a lot of work with the women. But in 2020, during my second term election, I was very devastated because I had lost three close people to me, Geraldine Doe and then Councillor Bromstead and my husband. So while I was away, almost into depression and not thinking about even coming back for elections, we were getting close, the women of Grand Bassa County came together and they decided to start my campaign. They said, we're not going to allow you to sit there and get depressed. Even if you get depressed, you can be there and we'll make you to win because we need you to stay at the table. At that time, I was the only female in the Senate. So when I came back and I joined the campaign, now we decided to bring the women together under one umbrella in Grand Bassa County, and we have a big organization called What the Women Say.
And lastly, of the news scene, the health officer of Bowman County, Ernest Davis, has outlined several development initiatives undertaken by the county health team since he assumed office, while acknowledging the contributions of Liberia's First Lady Katumo Boakai and the Beer Mountain Mining Company. Speaking in an interview on Wednesday, April 22 in Tottenbury, Manon Davis explained that upon taking office, the health facilities in the county face poor rural conditions that pose risk to patients, particularly pregnant women.
So the Bowman County Health Team is a system. It's not I alone standing single-handedly as the CHO. We have a team, yeah. So we have the line managers, and I can just name a few of them to you. We have on the team, we have the CHO, which is me. We have the county administrator. We have the medical director for the hospital, the major referral hospital, only referral hospital in Bowman County here. Yeah. And we also have the pharmacist, and we have the diagnostic officer. So it's a teamwork. So if we talk about development, there are numerous developments since I came on board. Just in a short my leadership. I will start first with the hospital. The hospital, the Liberian government hospital, 20-bedroom hospital. As soon as you come on the compound, if you have been in Bomi County before, in the hospital before, in the hospital compound, you will see the transformation. Nobody has to tell you, even the blind man can see it. That tells you the massive development that is ongoing or that has taken place on the hospital compound. We see from the street from the police station that leading to the hospital. Before, the road was bad with a lot of potholes. And we had pregnant women coming. Most of the people, they come on motorbike. They do not have car, and you have a lot of potholes and things. And it wasn't good for them. So, through the blessing of Her Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Liberia, Madam Katumu Yatta Bwaka, she engaged B Mountain and B Mountain King Ombu. B Mountain was the one that paved this road last year. So besides the road, B Mountain, through the grace of the First Lady, renovated our triage and isolation. If you go out there, you will see our triage where, when the patient comes, you examine them to know who is very sick from those who have minor illnesses.
Well, listeners, with that, this I would love to come to the end of the Thursday, April 23, 2026 morning edition of Blaze News Point. Before we go, a recap of the major stories. Office for the Establishment of the War and Economic Crimes Court for Liberia raises concern over the lack of adequate support attributes delayed in the court's establishment to administrative challenges involving top government officials. Former Executive Governor of the Central Bank of Liberia, Milton Weeks, calls for a more inclusive and results-driven approach to Liberia's financial inclusion agenda. House of Representatives passes into law a bill seeking the establishment of the Pinsville school system. Away from Liberia, Poblio criticizes the treatment of prisoners in Equatorial Guinea ahead of a visit to a jail known for its dire conditions. We say many thanks to our news director, editor, reporter, and correspondent for making this edition of Blaze New Point a success. Conan Rufus brought you the news bulletin. Eric Hennen set our control and coordinated news. On behalf of the News and Current Affairs Department of Blaze Communications Network Incorporated, my name is Menso Mendy. I present. Good morning and have a pleasant day from Pinsville.